2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing the audio from the control room on mic 2. Testing the AV bridge. All right, we are getting audio. We are. Oh, that I can't help you.
I tested yesterday.
Testing the AV. One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2. But that's not working.
Stop that.
test, test, test. Test, test, 1, 2, 3. Test, test, 1, 2, 3. Test, 1, 2, 3. Test, test, test.
Testing, testing, testing. All right, it's that magic time. So can you please take your seats? I walked up to somebody. Boy, very good. Getting some feedback over there. Good morning, everybody. I'm Michael Warden. I'm the Vice President for Institute Communication and stunt double for Wayne Clough. I'd like to welcome you to Georgia Tech's annual Institute address. And in addition to all of you, of course, who are special, sorry about that, Ken. We have some VIPs here that I'd like to recognize. That's what that list was. Thanks, Rob. So what I'd like, I'm going to recognize 3 groups. So I'd like you, as I call your name, stand, face the audience, and audience, please, because they're very sensitive, hold your applause to the end. They're a competitive lot. We don't want them comparing the applause levels for each of them. So first group is the President's Cabinet. First, Rafael Braz, Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs. Lynn Durham, Assistant Vice President and Chief of Staff. Archie Irvin, Vice President, Institute Diversity. Pat McKenna, Vice President of Legal Affairs, Risk Management. Colin, did I just see you come in? Yes. Colin Potts, Vice Provost, Undergraduate Education. Dean Sheehan, Vice President, Government and Community Relations. Very good. See you. John Stein, Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students. Susan Cousins, Vice Provost for Faculty Development and Graduate Education. Is Barrett here? Barrett, I did not see you, so Barrett, you're no longer a VIP. So join me in welcoming the President's Cabinet. We have with us also deans. Miriam Alavi, Scheller College of Business. Nelson Baker, Georgia Tech Professional Education. Stephen French, College of Design. Zvi Galil, College of Computing. Gary May, College of Engineering. And Catherine Murray Rust, did you walk in? There you go. Catherine Murray Rust, Dean of the Libraries. Join me in welcoming the deans. And we have some other distinguished guests I'd like to recognize. Paul Griffin, our Interim Athletic Director, Phase 2. Paul, are you here? No, same. Okay. Paul Griffin has agreed to be Interim Athletic Director again. Andy Gerber, did you come in at the last minute? Did not. Chris Downing, the new Vice President for Enterprise Innovation Institute. I know, Chris, you're here. Joe Irwin, President, Alumni Association. And finally, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome and introduce Val Peterson, First Lady of Georgia Tech. Also, wanted to bring out that we are live streaming the Institute's address as we have in the past. And we're also including Facebook Live for streaming, just to see how that works for us. Remembering that Facebook Live is normally used for coups and upheavals. Dr. Peterson will first give us his update, and then afterwards, as we normally do with the time remaining, we'll take questions from the audience and those that have been submitted in advance. In his 7 years at Georgia Tech, President G.P. Bud Peterson has championed efforts to strengthen the Institute's national and international leadership position in innovation, expanded strategic partnerships, and worked to maximize Georgia Tech's impact on the state, the region, the nation, and the world. In the process, he and Georgia Tech's First Lady, Val, have traveled throughout Georgia every summer, covering more than 5,100 miles, visiting friends and leaders in more than 45 cities and nearly every county throughout the state of Georgia. In addition, you might be interested to know, he's shaken the hands of more than 40,000 graduates who've crossed commencement stage. He's inaugurated Georgia Tech's Challenge course when he first arrived here by zip lining in the suit the first year he became president. And just to prove that wasn't an anomaly, in 2014, about this time of the year, he took the Ice Bucket Challenge presented by Georgia State's president, I believe. Mark Becker, who challenged him to do the Ice Bucket Challenge. And so to just make sure that we upstage Georgia State, as we usually do, what he chose to do in the Ice Bucket Challenge was to highlight the ALS research of Dr. Cassie Mitchell, currently in Rio de Janeiro, about to compete in the International Paralympics. And he was also in a suit, and you can still catch that ALS Ice Bucket Challenge on YouTube if you want to look it up, and I highly recommend you do. It's easy to find. Just Google top 10 crazy things people in suits do to get attention. He's worn and stained at least 50 gold ties at hundreds of events, all of it in service as Georgia Tech's Ambassador-in-Chief. Please join me in welcoming Georgia Tech's 11th President, Bud Peterson.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Michael. I've got some great people in communications that help me with my comments when I make public presentations.
And I'm not one of them.
You might want to work with them a little bit. Welcome. Good morning, and thanks for being here. It's great to have you. This is actually the 8th time we've had an institute address here at Georgia Tech, and I want to welcome all of the folks that are watching on the web, watching online, and on Facebook. What I want to talk about today is just very briefly, at least as briefly as I can try to summarize what's happened over the course of the past year and what we think we're going to work on in the next year. To talk about the things that we are focused on in the next several months. As we look to the future, it's often helpful for us to look to the past, to think about some of the decisions that have been made in the past and how they've helped to shape what Georgia Tech is today. And if we do that, we can identify several specific things. This will just be a very, very short list of those things that we have done or decisions that have been made in the past that I think have had a pretty dramatic effect on Georgia Tech. And certainly in the 1980s, when President Joe Pettit came, and he shifted the focus of Georgia Tech from a primarily undergraduate institution to one that looked and focused on graduate education. Today, Georgia Tech's annual research expenditures are over $765 million. We actually thought we might hit $800 million, which would be twice what it was just 6 years ago. And the research and graduate programs continue to grow. Another decision was the decision in 1990 to create the College of Computing. It was the second College of Computing in the country. Carnegie Mellon was the first. And today, our College of Computing is one of the largest, one of the best, and certainly one of the most innovative colleges in the country. Between 1990 and 1996, Georgia Tech played a huge role in securing the Olympics here in Atlanta. Our faculty were working on animation. They were working on some techniques that were very new at the time, and they presented with the Atlanta Committee to the U.S. Olympic Committee and to compete for the Atlanta Olympics here in Atlanta, and played a pivotal role in that. In fact, I was at a meeting not long ago where Andy Young, who was here at the time and very, very engaged and involved, said as much or more than anything else, Georgia Tech is what helped secure the Olympics in Atlanta. And it's been a huge benefit for us. When you look at the campus today and try to think of what the campus might be like without the Olympic dorms on the West Campus, the Olympic dorms that are on the connector there that we purchased from Georgia State, without the CRC, the AMC, the Alexander Memorial Coliseum, has been renovated since the Olympics. But if you think about what the campus might be like without those facilities, it would be a very, very different place. In 1999, we partnered with Emory University to establish a joint biomedical engineering program. That program is just 17 years old now, and it's one of the top 3 in the country and one of the best in the world. This thing has got a delay on for me here. Oh, thank you. That was all planned. Ken, I'm having some trouble here. This is embarrassing. You're the president of Georgia Tech. In 2003, the decision to jump the connector and move across the connector and establish Tech Square. And if you've been over there, and I'm sure all of you have been over there to see how exciting, what a vibrant innovation ecosystem exists over there, and all of the companies that are starting to locate there, the student activity that's there, the student startup companies that are there, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But today, the Southeast, Tech Square is the leading innovation center in the Southeast, and it's because of the decision that was made and the groundbreaking that occurred in 2003. A lot of times people don't realize it, but the 5th Street Bridge didn't open until 2006. That's the thing that connects Georgia Tech campus, the main campus, with Technology Square. Then in 2005, Georgia Tech undertook the development of the Quality Enhancement Program. We just went through the SACS accreditation and have a new quality enhancement plan, but in 2005, the QEP focused on 2 things. It focused on the international experience for our undergraduate students and the Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program. And if you want to think about the impact that decision to choose those two particular areas to focus on, today we have 54% of our undergraduate students that participate in some meaningful international experience before they graduate, either in study abroad or work abroad type of experience. And in terms of undergraduate research opportunity, about 40% of our students participate in a research experience. Ken, you're going to have to help me here. Some of the decisions that we made, that we're making today, are maybe every bit as important as the decisions that we've made in the past. And I'd like to go through some of those to just try to outline what I think are some of the key decisions that we've made here and are making today that will impact what happens and what Georgia Tech is like in the future. What we need to do is to make sure that we position ourselves so that we are in a place that we can take advantage of opportunities. And a great example of that particular situation is the High Performance Computing Center. So a couple of years ago, the state legislature was undertaking some legislation that would allow Georgia Tech to sign a multi-year lease. Today, 5 years ago, we couldn't sign a lease for more than a year as Georgia Tech, which is one of the reasons we have the Athletic Association as a separate 501c3, the Alumni Association, the Foundation, because we couldn't sign a lease for more than 1 year. That makes it difficult to try to build buildings. But the state was talking about some legislation that would allow state institutions, state agencies to sign multi-year lease capacity. And we were positioned so that when that legislation passed, through the efforts of Dean Sheehan and Steve Swant and a whole host of people, when that legislation passed, we were able and had a proposal that we could put forward that allowed us to have access to $115 million of the $140 million in multi-year leasing capacity. And that $115 million multi-year leasing capacity allowed us to go to Portman Holdings and talk to them about how we could partner with them to build a 750,000 square foot, $350 million high-performance computing facility. And that was possible because we were well prepared for an opportunity that presented itself. The strategic plan, which was launched in about 6 years ago, has helped shape what we are going to do and what we have done the past 6 years, what we're going to do in the next 20 years. It has determined what we think is important and has served as a roadmap for how we're moving forward. We established the Strategic Plan Advisory Group, chaired by David Frost. That group is advising the senior leadership at Georgia Tech about those things that we think are important and those things that we think we ought to focus on in the coming months and coming years. They put out an RFP for proposals from the faculty, the staff, and the students on issues and items that they thought were important. They received a total of 57 pre-proposals, and from that down selected to 20 proposals. And then those 20 proposals, we funded 8 of them. So we reviewed those, they made recommendations, and we funded 8 of those. And you can see some of the topics that those proposals address. Gender equity and inclusion, alternative service break expansion, real-time visualization of student projects. These are proposals that came from the students and faculty and staff, went through the Strategic Plan Advisory Group, were recommended and have been funded this next year. Some of them are single-year efforts or initiatives, some of them are multi-year efforts and initiatives, and some of them are just pilot programs. This is a way for the campus community to get involved in the strategic planning process and understand what we're doing. A key part of the strategic plan was globalization. We talk a lot about Georgia Tech and globalization. When I was talking to people, Steve Denning, many of you know Steve Denning if you're in the school, the College of Business, then you're familiar with Steve Denning's name. But Steve Denning, when I asked him to serve as part of the advisory board, the Georgia Tech advisory board, he said, why? And I said, because I want the advisory board to help us with the strategic planning process. And his question was, what role will globalization play in your plan? And I said, that's yet to be determined. But it has played a huge role for us. It's a focus that we have that allows us to broaden our reach and influence on other institutions, on other countries, and on students all around the world. This year, we'll celebrate our 25th anniversary, or we did celebrate our 25th anniversary of our campus in Lorraine. We've got global centers in China, in Costa Rica, in France, in Mexico, in Panama, and Singapore. And Dr. Bross, with the assistance of Yves Berthelot, is exploring opportunities in several other countries to look at how we can provide an opportunity for our students to experience the great big world out there, and probably most importantly, to be able to travel abroad, work abroad, or study abroad and see the United States through the lens of another country. We often talk about why this is important. Why is studying abroad or working or interning abroad important? And I think there are 2 reasons. One, it builds the students' confidence. And number 2, it does a tremendous amount in terms of opening their eyes about the great big world that's out there and all of the opportunities that exist for them. Our faculty are engaged in research in more than 100 companies. A lot going on internationally, and it will continue to grow. So we think of Georgia Tech as a global institution, an institution that's engaged globally. We have different foci. We're going to focus on undergraduate education here in Atlanta, but we have graduate programs where we're partnering with a number of other institutions. The decision on new facilities, some of the decisions that we've made on new facilities recently, the Marcus Nanotechnology Building, so that we have the facility, the leading facility in the Southeast to address issues around micro and nanotechnology. The Clough Undergraduate Learning Commons, a whole new way to approach undergraduate education. We use the library, the existing library, as a basis upon which we could design the Clough Undergraduate Learning Commons. And that became a test bed in the library. And then we used those techniques and technologies, some of the approaches that were tested in the library, to expand into the Clough Undergraduate Learning Commons where we are today. And what a wonderful facility it is. The first day we opened, it was like it had always been here. The students were engaged and involved. The spaces were actively being used. The Engineered Biosystems Building, very timely building. Big focus at the time we were working on the Engineered Biosystems Building was in medical devices, biomedical engineering, new technologies for the cure and solution to diseases. And the engineered biotechnology building, the EBB is a facility that was well positioned to move into a new space for Georgia Tech and expand what we're doing in those fields of biodevices, biomedical engineering, and biotechnology. The CODA is the next step in that, the high performance computing facility. We've seen what's happened in Technology Square. We'll see what is going to happen once we complete CODA and build that. It will allow us to expand what we're doing in high performance computing, in healthcare analytics, in logistics and supply chain, and a whole host of new areas, and you'll see a renewed and expanded growth of what's going on and the types of companies that are moving in to Technology Square. You probably read about NCR. They had planned to build one building. They just announced they're going to build a second building and be moving 5,000 people into their world headquarters in Technology Square. WorldPay is in Atlantic Station. They moved down from Sandy Springs. These companies are moving in there so that they can access the technologies and the talent that exists at Georgia Tech, and those technologies and that talent will be developed in facilities like the Engineered Biosystems Building and CODA. Athletic facilities. In the past 7 or 8 years, we've constructed the new softball field, the Brock football practice facility, the McCamish Pavilion, the Byers Tennis Center, the Chandler Stadium. We renovated the locker rooms and have renewed the golf practice facility on 14th Street. We're also renewing existing facilities. If you've been up on the hill, you've seen some expansion, some work that's going on Tech Tower. They will complete the renovation of Carnegie. They tell me by Monday. I was just in there and I'm not so sure, but I've got great confidence in our folks. That's the continuation of a project that's been going on for a number of years. We started out with the renovation or the refurbishment of the steam lines on Cherry Street and the sidewalks. Then we did the Stephen Hall building. Then we did the Chapin building. Then we started on Tech Tower, which is about a 15-month project. We started on Carnegie, which was about a 3-month project, and we'll expand that into the DM Smith building. We did Harrison Square. We did Harrison Square and are continuing that renovation of the Hill and what's going on there. Our research, it's virtually impossible for me to try to summarize what we're doing in research. So we've made a video, and we'll show that in just a minute. But I told some of you this before. When I first came to Georgia Tech, I was overwhelmed by the amount of information that I needed to become familiar with. I was just overwhelmed, and it just seemed so impressive, and there was so much that I had to learn. And I thought, I'll be glad when I'm here, when I've been here a year or two, and I know everything that's going on at Georgia Tech. The problem is, I think I'm losing ground. I think we're doing things faster than I can learn them. As I mentioned, our research expenditures have doubled in the past 6 years, and it's hard to keep up. So we'll show this video, and that'll give you a chance to kind of see some of the things that we're doing here at Georgia Tech in the research arena.
In this age of rapidly changing technology and global challenges, the question has become, what's next? At Georgia Tech, we're on it. From cell manufacturing and clean energy to cybersecurity and cures for diseases. We're partnering on campus and around the world, creating the next.
Corals are some of the most important species in many ocean ecosystems. They provide a foundation for organisms ranging from microbes to fish. In my group, we want to understand how global climate change is impacting these coral communities. Armed with this knowledge, we hope to anticipate what may be ahead for critical coral ecosystems all over the globe.
Equipment running our critical infrastructure is not at all like the computers we use in our homes and businesses. This equipment can't be protected against hackers by host-based firewalls or antivirus programs. We're creating the next generation of protection for this vital equipment by developing the equivalent of voice fingerprints that allow us to detect when critical devices are being attacked.
Aerospace manufacturing are shifting more and more to advanced composite materials for new aircraft design and manufacturing. We're creating the next generation materials and manufacturing technologies to enable airlines to better monitor and repair those composite aircraft structures. That will help bring down the maintenance cost and reduce repair cycle time to keep airplanes fly safely with less downtime and more on-time arrivals.
We're creating the next generation of photovoltaic cells using light trapping structure. By trapping more light, our cells can absorb more photons and operate efficiently, even when the sun isn't directly overhead. Cells using our design were recently launched to the International Space Station for testing.
The recent measurements of gravitational waves by the LIGO observatories was a major milestone for astrophysics. Georgia Tech contributed to that discovery, and we're continuing to work as part of LIGO and other major research projects aimed at creating a better understanding of our universe.
Future therapies for a wide range of diseases will depend on using living cells. To be effective and affordable, these cell-based treatments will require the ability to produce large volumes of living cells consistently and at high quality. We are creating the next generation of manufacturing technologies for producing the cells that will be used in these therapies.
Today's healthcare record systems keep information in separate boxes that make it difficult for doctors to see the whole picture. We're creating the next generation of health information systems that connect information from doctors, pharmacies, clinics, hospitals, and health insurance providers in a single place. That will enable doctors to spend more quality time with patients, improve the health of communities, and reduce costs.
We're creating the next generation of robotic control systems that will allow swarms of devices to work together. Just like ants, birds, or fish, the robots collaborate to solve complex and difficult problems.
So a lot of things going on in research, a lot of exciting things. We're doing things in academics that are going to shape the way we teach and educate our students in the future, the way they learn. What we're trying to do today is to prepare students not just for their next job, but for their third job, their fourth job, for a career. We've talked a lot about trying to imagine and envision what the world might be like in 20 or 25 years when the students that are graduating today are in the middle of their career. And all you have to do is think back to what life was like 20 or 25 years ago, the technology that we used, the technology that didn't exist, and how that shaped our lives. We've created a commission on creating the next in education under the direction of Provost Bross. They have a broad charter to try to imagine all of the ways that a GT education might be more effective, more accessible, and more affordable for our students. We've asked them to take into account the changing demographics that exist. The demographics here in the state of Georgia, the changing demographics across the country, and in fact around the world. And to identify scientific and technical advances that can help make sure that we have the most advanced educational techniques and technologies that exist anywhere in the world. A great example of that is the online Masters in Computer Science. You've heard a lot about it. The enrollment as of this fall will be over 4,100 students. We're exploring the opportunity and the possibility of expanding that and offering an additional online master's in data analytics, or perhaps one in cybersecurity. That will allow us to continue to expand what we're doing and continue to allow us to use the technologies that we have here and the technologies that are being developed all around the world, again, to educate our students and to provide the best learning environment that they can possibly have. A great example of this is I'm not sure what to call it, is a computer. So I'll call it a computer, or maybe I should just call it Jill Watson. How many of you have heard of Jill Watson? So everybody's heard of Jill Watson. Well, Jill Watson is a TA. She was a TA for Professor Ashok Goel's AI class, artificial intelligence class. He actually had 9 TAs. One of them was a computer. When they started the class, they didn't tell anybody that one was a computer, but when they started the class, Jill's answers were not very good. She gave answers that were correct, but they weren't necessarily appropriate. She might say, the question that the student sent in might be, what color is the sky? And Jill would answer, the grass is green. Well, that's right, but it isn't exactly what they wanted to know. And so a student would review the answers at the start of the semester, and using the artificial intelligence techniques that they've developed here, that Professor Goel and his students had developed here, they continue to improve Jill's responses. And by the end of the semester, she was answering 40% of all the questions that were submitted to the 9 TAs with a 97% accuracy rating, and no students were reviewing them before they went out. That particular technology is going to be used again this fall, but this fall the students will know that Jill is a computer. So they'll try to trick her. And that will allow the people that are working to develop this technique and these technologies to continue to improve it, with the idea that perhaps we can use artificial intelligence TAs, Jill Watson and her brothers and sisters, for the introductory computer classes in the spring semester. I went up shortly after an article was in the Wall Street Journal about Jill Watson and met with the writer that wrote the story. And she said, I have two questions for you. One, do you think it was unethical not to tell the students that Jill was a computer? And I said, well, they reviewed the answers at first to make sure they were right, and she had a 90% efficacy rate. She was actually nominated as one of the outstanding TAs, so probably not. And she said, the other question is, how did you keep this a secret? And I said, the same way we kept Ernie Scheller's name secret for 2.5 years on the naming of the Scheller College of Business. My dad told me when I was young, if you want to keep a secret, don't tell anybody. And so they didn't tell me. Actually, they know I can't keep a secret, so they didn't tell me. They did put it through the Institute Research Board. There has to be approval process for use of human subjects, so they did get approval there. But this is just one example of some of the remarkable things that we're doing in education. Partnerships and collaboration. We learned through the experience with Emory and the biomedical engineering program about the importance of partnerships and collaboration. And we've expanded those efforts. We've expanded the efforts into to our relationship with Emory. So we've expanded our partnership with Emory so that we're looking at course sharing. We now have an opportunity where our undergraduate students can take Emory's courses and Emory's students can take our courses on a space available basis for no charge. So we have Emory students that are taking courses at Georgia Tech. We expanded the opportunity and the partnership with Emory through the library services facility. So we now house the books from our library and the books from Emory's library on their Briarcliff campus in an environmentally controlled facility that houses their books and our books, and it provides access for a greatly expanded portfolio of resources for students here at Emory and students here at Georgia Tech. We are partnering with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta through the EBB and the Pediatric Healthcare, or the Pediatric Technology Center, a great partnership. The Children's Healthcare has a lot of problems, and we have a lot of solutions. And the real issue for us is, how do we take the people that have problems at Children's Healthcare and match them with the people here at Georgia Tech that have solutions? One of the things that I say that sounds kind of funny is that the solution to any problem is easy if you find somebody that knows the answer. We've got people that know the answers, and by working and collaborating with the physicians and the clinicians that exist and are working at Emory, we can match those up and come up with some truly, truly remarkable devices. We've expanded that partnership to the Centers for Disease Control. We have a seed funding program with CDC where researchers from CDC and researchers from Georgia Tech come together, put together a proposal with researchers from both institutions, and then we fund that jointly between CDC and Georgia Tech to try to build that partnership. And we're doing the same type of thing with Augusta University, in particular the dental school in Augusta University. We have folks doing some remarkable things in material science, and a lot of the issues and problems in dental hygiene are focused on materials issues. The innovation and economic development, the decisions we are making today, the decisions we've made over the past 10, 12, 13 years are having a huge impact on innovation and the innovation ecosystem that exists here at Georgia Tech. Again, I mentioned Technology Square. That's clearly the most obvious. And within Technology Square, one of the things that's really remarkable is the number of companies that are starting to build innovation centers in Technology Square. Just recently, the new announcements by Anthem, which is our healthcare provider, Stanley Black & Decker, Emerson, they're all creating new innovation centers. And just this past week, earlier this week, NCR said they're opening their innovation center in Technology Square. But that's just one aspect of what's going on over there. The Enterprise Innovation Institute under Chris Downing's leadership, the ATDC, is continuing to expand their reach. They're working with over 400 companies around the state. A lot of people don't realize it, but we have people from Georgia Tech located in 26 or 27 locations around the state. And it's a lot like the University of Georgia's county agents, where they have a county agent that's responsible to help the farmers and ranchers in every county in the state of Georgia. We have people in 26, 27 locations around the state that are charged with helping industries, companies, and people around the state connect with Georgia Tech. Either connect by improving their manufacturing process using Six Sigma or lean manufacturing, or connect by giving those individuals out around the state of Georgia access to the technology and expertise and talent that exists here at Georgia Tech. We've also got, we talk about technology neighborhoods, the North Avenue research area. A lot of times people don't realize that, but if you go west on North Avenue, after you go under that overpass, there's a whole research area there. New combustion lab, the carbon neutral energy solutions laboratory, and a lot of activity going on there in food research, the food research laboratory, and on the other side is Technology Enterprise Park with the TEP1 building where CardioMEMS is located. That continues to grow and expand. We're looking at manufacturing in the West Side communities, expanding our efforts in manufacturing. And up in Atlantic Station with WorldPay, and in Technology Square with NCR, we're looking at the fintech technologies. Over 70% of the credit card processing activities in the country pass through the city of Atlanta or the state of Georgia. Most of it here in Atlanta or in Columbus in some of the companies that are down there. The addition of the Biltmore, 290,000 square feet of innovation space in the Biltmore, plus the 750,000 square feet from CODA will expand our footprint in the innovation and entrepreneurship arena in Technology Square by 1 million square feet. And those, again, fourth quarter of 2018, we'll finish CODA, and you'll see a tremendous expansion and growth in what we're doing in Technology Square. Today, we start between 40 and 50 companies out of technologies developed at Georgia Tech. Our goal is to do 100 within 5 years, and I'm certain that we'll make that. Decisions we're making about undergraduate students and our focus on undergraduate students. This is the 8th year we've had the best prepared, best qualified, and one of the most diverse freshman classes in Georgia Tech history. Applications, 30,500 applications for about 2,850 spots. That's double what it was just 5 years ago and up 12% just from last year. This year, as in past years, Val and I, along with a whole group of the senior leadership, went on the summer tour. We traveled about 570 miles, did 27 events in 14 cities in 4 days. And at one of those events, when I made the presentation, one of our alums came up and he said, it used to be really hard to get out of Georgia Tech. He said, but today I think it's harder to get in than it is to get out. And the competition to get into Georgia Tech continues to expand, as does the number of applications. The students that are admitted have worked incredibly hard. But their journey and what they do in the future is now in our hands. It's a truly impressive bunch, but it's impressive in a lot of ways, not just because of how well they did in their classes in high school, but because of the other activities, the service activities, the leadership activities that they're involved in. And it's impressive because of the increased diversity. In the past 5 years, we've seen a 15% increase in the number of African American students in our freshman class, a 34% increase in the number of Hispanic students, and a 19% increase in the number of women in our freshman class. And we'll continue to expand and diversify our freshman class. Graduate students. If we think about graduate students, this is getting frustrating, sorry. If we think about graduate students, we had over 19,000 applications for graduate students. More than 19,000 applications for graduate students for this fall. That's an increase of 12% over last year. Of those, 3,700 new graduate students admitted to Georgia Tech for this fall semester. Just one example, the Master's in Analytics. We had 800 applications for 70 spots for the Master's program in Analytics. And I mentioned the online Master's program. We also had 11,000 students for the first time. So we have 11,000 graduate students for the first time in Georgia Tech history. Counting, Leslie Sharp likes that, counting the OMS-CS. That makes the graduate students, if you count the online master's students, the graduate students now comprise 42% of the students here at Georgia Tech. We're talking about institutional effectiveness and the decisions we make on institutional effectiveness. And I'll tell you a story about institutional effectiveness. When we were talking about the strategic plan, we'd identified, I think, 12 or 15 what we thought were key areas. And one of them was business processes, is what I think we called it. And I said, we were having a conversation about where we were going to locate the rooms for each of these discussions in the Georgia Tech Hotel and Conference Center. So we had the investiture, and that afternoon we were going to break up into groups, and we were trying to assign which room for which particular topic of these 12 or 15 topics. And when we talked about institutional effectiveness, I told Steve Swan, I said, we could probably hold that in my office because there's not going to be that many people involved or interested. And he said, you're wrong. And he was in fact right. When we held that session that afternoon, along with the other ones, there were 120 people that were interested in it. And he said that that was the most important one because it's institutional effectiveness that's going to allow us to have the resources to do all of the other things that we want to do. If we are careful about how we manage the institution, about how we develop new processes, new business practices, then that will allow us to provide resources to do all of the other things that I've just talked about. It will allow us to deal with new things that happen, and most importantly, it will allow us to deal with the decline in state resources that we've seen over the past several years. If we look ahead at athletics, students here at Georgia Tech have an opportunity to enrich their experience by participating in more than 400 student organizations. The arts, the community, the band, intramural sports, a whole host of things. But they also have an opportunity to participate in intercollegiate athletics. A lot of times people are surprised to hear that we have over 400 students that are involved in intercollegiate athletics. And we're tremendously proud of what they do. It helps develop leadership skills, teaming skills. Of the 17 NCAA Division I sports here at Georgia Tech, we have all of them are in good standing. 3 of the teams, golf, swimming, and diving, and volleyball, lead the NCAA in the APR, the academic progress rate. And football, for the past 2 years, has had the second highest APR of any school in the ACC. These are student athletes that are not only good on the field or on the court, but they're excelling in the classroom. They have experiences that they might not have otherwise. We're going to Dublin. That's Dublin, Ireland, not Dublin, Georgia. We're going to Dublin, Ireland for the first football game a week from this Saturday. There'll be 111 football players that will make that trip. 79 of them had to get passports so that they could go. They'd never been out of the country. So what an experience that's going to be for them. If we look ahead and think about community health and well-being, we've had a number of task forces this past year, and I want to talk about 3 specific issues. The first one, we had a task force on mental health and a task force on sexual assault. As a result of those, we developed a plan to create the Center for Health and Well-Being here at Georgia Tech under the direction of Dr. Susie Harrington, Susie Waif. Susie's been with us about a year. She's brought together health promotions, the Campus Recreation Center, and the Student Health Center to focus on the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being of our students. It's a whole new initiative that I think will help set a standard for how we address the well-being of our entire campus community. We've got, this can be a stressful place. It can be a very stressful place. And as a result, in conjunction with the Center for Health and Well-Being, the Division of Student Life and the Counseling Center is developing a new initiative. It's called Tech End Suicide Together, TEST. This is an effort and an initiative to try to help address the issue of suicide on college campuses. They've asked Val to help with that. They've asked for a whole host of other people to help with that, and we're looking forward to try and understand how we can help students deal with the stress that they have here at Georgia Tech. We can't eliminate the stress, but we can help them deal with it, and that's the focus of this particular initiative and effort. The second area is in the Black student experience. We formed a task force last year to address the Black student experience and think about what can we do to enhance and improve the Black student experience. I've introduced the members of the task force to some of the other task forces before, but I don't think we've ever recognized the participants and the task force members. If you're on the Black student experience task force, will you stand up? Let's give them a round of applause. Back in the back. They came up with 11 recommendations, many of which we've already adopted and the others will be adopted this year. We've developed a tracking process whereby we can look at those recommendations and see, are we making progress? Who's responsible for each of those initiatives? One of them is that they had asked that we create a reporting process where students can report things anonymously that they found problematic or offensive. We tomorrow will roll out through the Ethics Point process a new, you'll see a bullet on the Ethics Point process that says student-related matters. And if you have an issue about an ethical issue, you can go to the Ethics Point, or if you have an issue about something that happens on campus that you find problematic or offensive, you can report it through Ethics Point, and that will go live tomorrow. This is under the direction of John Stein, the Vice President for Student Life, and Archie Irvin, the Vice President for Institute Diversity. And we will track the recommendations and track the progress that we're making on those recommendations. And then the third one, many of you know that we established or created a number of listening sessions last fall and last spring. We had some issues around gender equity. So what we did was to talk to the community. We invited people in, faculty, staff, students, and had 7 sessions with 25 or 30 people in each one to talk about the environment here at Georgia Tech and to come up with a series of recommendations. They also came up with 11 recommendations. I'm not sure what it is about 11. It's not the engineering base 10 type of thing or the more biblical 12, but it's 11 recommendations from each of these task forces. And we, again, have a process by which we can assign who's responsible for each of those and who's going to track the progress on each of those. This Office of Institute Diversity is going to meet quarterly with the representatives from HR, from Faculty Affairs, from Institute Communications, and other organizations on campus to try to prioritize what we're doing in this particular arena. And then the campaign. Many of you have heard we completed the campaign last December. It was a campaign designed to raise $1.5 billion. We raised $1.8 billion. Created 104 new endowed chairs. Established or were able to raise funds for $354 million in student support and constructed or renovated over 20 major facilities. A huge success. This will provide resources for us as we go forward and try to accomplish many of the things that I've outlined today. And then finally, in conclusion, this is a time of positive momentum for Georgia Tech. It's a time where we've got a rapidly growing global reputation. Our students, faculty, and staff are among the best in the world. We're collaborating with industry, government on breakthrough research. We're developing innovation neighborhoods around the campus. We're strengthening the economy and equipping startups so that they can be successful and equipping our students with the knowledge and information they need to create those startups. Many of our faculty and staff are national opinion leaders in their respective areas. And we continue to expand our campus footprint. Today, we have 122,000 square feet under construction and another 476,000 square feet in the design phase. These new facilities will help us continue to grow and expand and improve what we're able to offer our students here at Georgia Tech. And then in closing, it's important to recognize that throughout the years, Georgia Tech has been a leader in a lot of areas. We saw it in 1952 when they admitted women. We saw it again in 1961 when Georgia Tech was the first university in the South to integrate peacefully. Working together, we can address the issues that we face as a campus community. We can continue to live up to our potential and in fact exceed that potential, but it is going to take all of us working together, cooperating, collaborating, and communicating so that we can continue to make Georgia Tech the great institution that it is today and make it even better in the years to come. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to take some questions. All right, we're not going to take questions now. We're going to do a presentation. And at this point, I want to invite Ryan Beckham, Jordan Thomas, and Caitlin Seam to come forward. And I hope they're here. Here they come. And I'm going to ask Miss Patricia Ford, who is Miss Georgia 2016, to join us up front. Patricia, you're supposed to clap for that, folks. You want to explain? You want to explain what's going on?
Okay. Do you want to? So for the Show Us Your Shoes parade that Patricia will be in for Miss America, we decided to make a shoe kind of similar to the one that we made for Maggie, but not all too similar, because we integrated a lot of coding and a lot of light work in it. It's not quite done yet, so this is like the 75%. Still got to add a lot more glitter, make it a lot more pageant-y.
No, that's basically it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Patricia, good luck to you. Good luck in the competition. You bet. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey, we do have time for a few questions, remembering that there is a class in here at noon, so we will need to wrap up in time to exit the room and make it available for why it's here, which is for class. Have Paul Strauss.
Dr. Peterson, my question is, as I travel around the campus, I get a lot of questions around the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, for those that have seen it in the news. As you know, the federal government has made some major changes to it over the last year. Could you give us your thoughts in terms of the implications for Georgia Tech and specifically for employees?
So in June, President Obama signed an executive order that changed, it changed the way the Fair Labor Standards Act works. Basically, in the past, if you made less than $27,000, a little more than $27,000, then you were hourly, what we call non-exempt. If you made more than that, you were salaried and you made exempt. He has changed that and moved that salary level to about $47,000, a little more than $47,000. And in addition, there's a duties test. So your job description has to incorporate a certain number of specific duties. And as a result of that, by the first of the year, by January, we will have to modify our exempt and non-exempt categories. So again, exempt are individuals that are salaried and non-hourly. They don't get overtime. Non-exempt are people that get overtime. So that salary level moved from $27,000 to $47,000. And with the 47, there's a duties test. So over the course of the next several weeks, you'll be hearing some communications about what we're going to do and how we're going to address that. It means that some people that were salaried or monthly are going to go to hourly employees. That will provide them the opportunity to get paid overtime. And that was really part of the motivation behind the executive order, I believe, because there were some people that were in that salary range below $47,000 that were not getting paid overtime, but were being, the term, I think the legal term is suffer, that you can't suffer someone to work, so you can't force them to work. But that will allow more people to collect overtime. So we've got a lot of work to do with that. Kim Harrington is working on it with her staff and OHR. We'll be rolling out some information to try to communicate, having some town hall meetings to try to communicate, let those people that are impacted or will be affected know what's going on, why is it happening, and how's the change going to impact each of them. So we're working on it. We're not there yet. The system is providing some guidance, but that direction and guidance that they're providing is still in the developmental stages. So thank you, Paul.
Any other questions? Raise your hand, please. We'll get a microphone to you right over here.
Hey, hello, President. Hello. So
introduce yourself.
I have a quick question. So
okay.
I just came here on June. I'm a postdoc. So I went to the CRC and I saw the equipment. They're kind of old, and I don't expect to be very up to date, but some of them are kind of rust. I mean, I don't care. if I bleed, I can get a tetanus vaccine. But are we planning to upgrade them in the near future, maybe?
I have to confess, I don't know what the plans are, the specific plans are for renovation of the equipment. If it's rusty, we'll certainly look into it. I don't think you have to worry about tetanus, but we'll look into that also. We have a renovation plan for all of the equipment, for the buildings, for the facilities, for the classrooms, and for the equipment, and we can certainly look into that. But welcome to Georgia Tech. We're glad you're here.
Any other questions? Raise your hand.
Right here. Good morning, everybody.
Okay.
My name is Michael Bryan. I'm a freshman here. I'm in the aerospace program. But my question to you, Mr. Peterson, is that over the summer and as I've been acquainting myself with tech, I've actually talked to Mr. Chris Burke in the government relations office quite a bit. And one of the things that I hear from him often and that we've had conversations about is how with schools that are in the West community, right next to tech, they pass by every day, they see it every day, yet students over there believe that because of the high standards and the high regulations that tech has and how big it is and how it's such a prestigious school, that they believe they can't see themselves achieving this goal. So how do you think that tech can work to improve themselves, not only to assist these students, but to go out into the West community and to other communities around the world who are trying to bring themselves to these standards? How do they think that tech can improve themselves to help with that?
So a couple of responses. First, we've got a very active program under the leadership of the Ivan Allen College, Dean Jackie Royster, with the West Side communities, and Chris Burke is working with that. In answer to your specific question about how we can encourage and make students aware of the opportunities here at Georgia Tech, many of you are familiar. Last year, we started a new program, a scholarship program called the APS Scholars Program, which provides a full tuition scholarship for any student from the Atlanta Public Schools that graduates as valedictorian or salutatorian. We've had a tremendous response to that, a tremendous response to the number of students that are coming here from the APS, and we continue to work and partner with them on ways that we can help them understand that the Georgia Tech education is available to them. I just actually had breakfast this morning with Superintendent Maria Karstafen, so this isn't a setup, but and we talked about the APS program and how we can make it even more successful. We're also looking at ways that we can invite the community in. You probably or may have read in the newspaper that while Phillips Arena is being renovated, that we will be hosting the Atlanta Dream in McCamish Auditorium. So they'll be playing the WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association basketball games in the McCamish Pavilion. That is a great opportunity for us to bring people to campus that might not otherwise be on our campus and give them an opportunity to see it and to experience some of the great things that are going on here. We will, as part of that process, create and develop some educational opportunities so that when the Atlanta Dream are playing and we've got folks coming that might not normally come to campus, they can have some exposure to our educational programs. So maybe, do we have time for one more?
One more question.
One more. Back in the back.
Got it right there.
Hello, President Peterson. I'm Renee with the Fire Safety Office. Along with the partnering with Emory and Augusta University, has anyone envisioned Georgia Tech become the medical college/hospital?
We've got a Division I athletics program, and that pretty much occupies. I say that because Jim Wagner, the former president at Emory, we joke and sometimes we talk about he had a medical school and a hospital, and I had an athletics program. The answer is no. We don't want to start a medical school, and we don't need to start a medical school because we've got a great partnership with Emory and a growing one with Augusta. So we are focused on the technologies, engineering, the science that's related to medical practices, create or solution to new diseases, cure for new disease or for diseases, new cures for diseases, and those types of things. So we don't have any plans to start a medical school, but we do have plans to continue to expand our partnership with the medical schools that exist here in Georgia. It's much like the relationship we started with both Emory and now with Georgia State in the practice of law. We are partnering with Emory and with Georgia State in a JM, a Juris Master's degree in law, not because we want to start a law school, but because the way technology is growing is rapidly changing and impacting the law. And so we're partnering with them to allow our students to take a 5-year program where they can get a bachelor's degree in engineering or science and a 1-year Juris Master's in law from Emory or Georgia State. And we'll continue to do that. We don't have to build everything ourselves. We can partner and collaborate with some other folks and make and leverage their expertise with our expertise to actually do more with less.
And with that,
we'll stop.
Conclude.
Thank you very much.
Please swiftly move out into the foyer. The president will be out there for other questions that you may wish to ask him. Let me turn mine on before you say it.